Okay.
Hey, everybody, all you 3Ders, beautiful people, listeners, and watchers. It is October 17th, 2014, and this is All Things 3D, and this is Week in Review. It's Friday, and we're going to talk about what happened this week in the 3D realm.
That's right.
What do you say, Mike?
I don't have any glasses on today. Oh my God. It's not going to be a good show now.
Oh, don't say that. All right, well, I will kick things off. I'm Chris, one of your co-hosts, and we will talk about some things that are happening in the 3D world. First thing that I saw this week was a pretty interesting article. I thought this was an interesting exhibition here. This is an artist. This is thanks to Vice magazine, so the creatorsproject.vice.com. And its artist uses 85 3D printed figurines to create a film without any film. So what he's done here is he's actually printed using SLA little figurines on little like shelf things and put them in front of a projector and actually made a 3D animation.
So they look like clear objects, and then he's created an isotrope type. Is it isotrope or isotope type? I am.
Animation.
Uh,
And here's the exhibition. It's he's the artist's name is, I want to give him credit here because he's done a pretty fine job. Julian Mayer, I think.
Maya? I don't know. Oh.
Yeah, and it's created as part of his Fab Lab digital manufacturing residency at the IMAL Center for Digital Cultures and Technology in Brussels. Mayer used 85 stereolithographic figurines on a mechanized projector system to mimic an old film reel from the early 20th century. The result is a film without film, an animation that uses the principles of light and speed to create the illusion of a motion picture. It looks pretty. I scoured and could not find a video. So they don't have a video quite up yet of it.
Well, if they put a video up, then it wouldn't be. It would
You
take
wouldn't
away
need to go.
from the whole. Yeah, exactly. That's
It
kind of
would go
funny.
against everything the artist stands for.
Well, it's
So
it's just incredible. You see all these artists, and I sometimes like to think I'm an artist, maybe, and it's just kind of amusing that what people think of, and obviously, I guess he's doing this for his school project, but the money and the time that goes into some of these things that it's going to be like a one-time deal.
yeah, I mean it's an art exhibition, and but just an interesting kind of just a new. He's thinking outside the box, That's
No,
this is the kind of thinking that pushes it all forward. Because who knows? I mean, yeah, it's not practical for this kind of thing, but people could look at this and go, oh well, for my mechanized process, whatever it is, then I need to build up something that it might inspire somebody else to do something that might influence
no,
manufacturing,
I'm not
engineering,
taking
something.
away at all from it, Chris. I
Yeah.
just think
No, yeah,
it's
no, I
funny
hear what you're saying.
what we think of, and our creative juices are flowing, and then people
I
look at us and say, "You're just wasting your time."
I
Like,
completely agree with you.
okay, so I'll move on to my item. Um, so I'm going to do something boring and talk about a 3D printer again. Another one. Geez, they just keep playing these 3D printers, but this is the iBox Nano, world's smallest, least expensive 3D printer. Um, it looks pretty interesting, other than you can't print much. In fact, this is like
Yeah,
what, half the size of our little RP. So, but obviously it's the same kind of technique. It looks like they put all the electronics. I'll go ahead and play the video here, but it looks like uh, they essentially looks like they use clear plexiglass plates. They put all the electronics in it, and they're using they say what, LEDs or some type of LED panel that's built into this. Is this something similar to the people that we kind of, what would you say, diminished a little bit their process about using a iPad LCD panel a couple of weeks back, and when
Oh, right, right,
when we
right.
had Brad on to talk about it. But this is kind of cute, don't you think? I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
how
and the
much.
video inspired. The Kickstarter. I always look, um, because it is like a new type of banking. It's like the new type of loan. You're fronting them money. So my thing is like I look at it like I'm the banker when I go on Kickstarter. It's like I'm the banker, and I have to ask all the hard questions, as many as you can based on, it's all in good faith because, a lot of these people are really good at, smoke and mirror type things anymore.
Hmm.
So, but this one, you notice that they have like 20 of these things sitting around,
Yeah, they've
and they've got a
exactly.
laser. This guy and the guy. Well, I do have to say that this guy inspired a lot more confidence as far as a Kickstarter project than a lot of others. So, you know, um, it looks like a pretty interesting project. I did have a
Yeah, it
look
looks
at it.
fun. And if it's as it said, I think I can't remember because I think they've already out of their early Kickstarter. I mean, it was just released yesterday and they're already finished with it. But I think you can get the product for like $2.99.
Yeah,
But if that includes the projector, that really is a very reasonable
it's not
price.
a.
And
It doesn't use a projector.
well, I'm sorry, some type of light projection system. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, since it's still an SLA type printer, it has to have some light source. But
right.
yes, it doesn't use a projector, so it looks like there's an array of
LEDs.
LEDs.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe the
that's what it looks like.
LEDs go through an LCD plate to provide the. I don't know. I'm guessing right now, but
But I mean, like, look at how many people they got working on this. That's, I
yeah.
mean, it's a
And
pretty
look at the
decent
part. I
sized
mean,
thing.
it looks a little. Remember our Castle Clear, which was something similar, but yeah, it looks like a very nice little project and has nice illumination. Even if you don't print much with it, you can just turn it on and have it as like a little night light or something. I've spent things or more money on tablets that don't get used probably as often as this. So it looks pretty cool. I mean, obviously it's very similar to some of the other open source projects, except it looks well wrapped together and a really nice product.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
I wish I had some money laying around and I would plunk it down. But
Well,
another cool product, and yeah, I think we can safely assume that they're going to be funded, and I like the fact. And then they give everybody. I'm having it scroll through the credits, but they give everybody credit and all the people who created the different things that they're showing off. So that's kind of cool as well.
yeah,
So yeah,
I think
hats
we're
off to
seeing
them. Good
that trend.
video.
A lot of people learning from the mistakes that others have made, where people are getting called out for not giving credit or whatever. It's starting to finally kind of take form. Or kind of evolve a little bit. The whole makerspace thing.
Yep. So hats off to them. Wish them well, and let's hope that they fund it. And I don't know, maybe I can look underneath my couch sofas or something and come up with some spare change and just I don't know, maybe go into SLA collecting, something like that.
So this next topic is pretty funny because the headline that I read was "You wouldn't download a car," which is a meme, based on the old piracy. You wouldn't steal a DVD, and what the Motion Picture Association used to put out those really funny anti-piracy campaign ads. This one, the title of the article or the title of the headline was "You wouldn't download a car, but now you can." Yeah. So Local Motors, their Stratty 3D printed car that we covered last week, pretty funny. Now they have released the source files on Thingiverse, and you can literally download and print yourself a 3D electric car.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need to buy some motors and other components, but most everything else is. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Most everything else is fully downloadable and printable. I mean, obviously, this car they printed. I think it was at like a half millimeter or a millimeter resolution. So they had some really thick 3D printer, but they
Yeah,
even
but
have it so that you could print the wheels if you wanted to. Here it is all laid out.
how funny.
This little
Now, obviously,
model.
that's a scale model.
Yeah, well, no, I mean this is a scale model. This is the full size model, so you can scale it up to be full
Well,
size if you
yeah,
want.
but I would assume that some of those pieces you wouldn't have a print bed large enough to print it.
Well, yeah, it's assuming if you could build your own 3D printer like they did, that would
Yeah.
be, you know, a full size, or you could if you have fancy software like some of us, you can
Yeah, but
split it into pieces
there
and
you
then
go.
join it together, you know? You know what
There
I'm
you
saying?
go, Chris. Yeah, here you can be the artist there. Break it up into a bunch of 5-inch square pieces and then assemble it with super glue.
Right. And then you're driving around in a super glued car, which is
Yeah.
completely fine and
Uh,
strong.
Well, and plus, as soon as you go into that 5 or 10 mile crash, it'll pulverize and throw out shards and kill all the. No, okay, never mind.
I'm gonna print mine in nylon.
All right,
And
well, on to something a little more serious.
okay, more
Uh,
serious.
but I do have a fun item at the end. But I saw this in the news, and thanks to Alec from 3ders.org, but I also went out and looked at some of the videos and actually wrote to her and looked at some of her papers. But this is actually from Wikipedia. But I guess this is the fibrous material, and what they've been trying to do is mimic the chemical properties, the structure of bones. And as you're probably aware, bones are very porous and they have multi-levels. So what they're trying to do is that they've come up with something that is based upon a ceramic mesh or material. And here she's given an example at their TED Talk in, was it, I want to say Australia, maybe. But you can go back and listen to it. It's actually down here. Um, but she's, I don't want to mess up her name, Hala Zreiqat. I don't know.
That's an
So,
interesting last name.
yep. But she has two YouTube videos, kind of discusses it, but you really have to do a little digging to find out exactly what she's been doing. But essentially, they've been working on something that mimics collagen and calcium through a ceramic substrate, and then they're able to take that mixture and obviously extrude it, like many things, through a 3D printer. And what's interesting at the bottom of this, and I looked it up, if you go to the bottom of this, there's some comments that a Hyrule 3D engine was used, and I looked at it, and it didn't look like that dramatic of a 3D printer, but hats off to them for providing the printer that's used to create the samples that are here. But what was really interesting, and why this caught my attention, is that they're now working with a group in China to use maxillofacial regeneration, so essentially recreate the bone structures. And one of the things she talks about that that is different with this is that the bone itself can grow through it. So literally you can regrow bone. So it's kind of a support or scaffolding system so that the bone itself will grow back, which is unique. Normally when you put in metals or plastics or other materials, that replaces it. And in this case, you can literally allow your own bone structure. So they're going to be doing experiments on, facial reconstruction. But then I thought, in my own personal case, if you remember, we talked about Siobhan and over the past few months and how she had a bony meningioma, which is a golf ball size tumor that was embedded in the bone in her upper orbital root. Well, they performed surgery and they removed it, but they literally removed the entire upper plate of the eye cavity. So now she has a large golf ball size hole now. And one of the reasons I think, and we're actually going to be talking to my surgeon or her surgeon today to find out a little bit more, but there are concerns that that bone is there for a reason and it prevents the dura from pressing on some muscle structures. So I was thinking, why didn't they put in some type of titanium mesh or something? And I was thinking, I look at it like a ship in a bottle type thing, where you essentially are working through a very small orifice. In her case, they went through her upper eyelid, and they drilled it out with micro tools. But then how do you put something back in its plate? You know, like a ship in a bottle, you'd have to probably do it very carefully. So I'm assuming, and I guess we'll find out more, that the consequences of not having bone do not outweigh the whole procedure of having the tumor, which would make sense. But then I'm thinking, if we go back to this new material, they could literally, using what they call stereotactic processes, use like a portable 3D printer and actually extrude the material and create while the incision is still made. So where they drilled it out, they could put it back in and build the structure in there with this material, and then let the bone regrow. So then you would have minimal, because normally they have to do a full craniotomy in these cases, which means you have to lift out part of the skull, move the brain, which can create all kinds of problems, which is why we avoided that to begin with. But this might be a new way to still use minimally invasive techniques, which is normally used for removing, to actually bring back material. So I wrote to her. Hopefully we'll have her in an interview and identified or presented this idea to her and see if they're moving in that direction. But I think it's kind of cool where we're going with some of these materials and how 3D printing is pushing a lot of this stuff forward. So hats off to her, and hopefully we'll have her on an interview in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome, awesome. Well, on the same topic of 3D in medicine, which is one of our favorite topics here.
Yes. And I'll throw out that on the 29th of October, we will have 3D in medicine at our local community library in San Luis Obispo, but we're also going to be streamcasting it on Google Hangouts between 6 and 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you're welcome to come in and join us. We'll have some great guests from around the world.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have been really interested in prosthetics in the past few months. I printed a prosthetic hand for one of my clients' sons who was missing a hand, and this one is brand new. You can find it at Pat Starace, I think is how you say his name. It's PatStarace.com. And Iron Man 3D printed child's hand. You could Google that. And this is amazing. So if you haven't watched the video for this yet, you've got to see it. It's pretty cool. It's a little prosthetic hand.
Go ahead and expand the video.
It's a prosthetic hand, and it basically not only is a great prosthetic hand that functions and closes when you bend it and opens when you release, so is a really could be a really great cheap alternative to professional grade prosthetics, but it also has some nifty features like compartments for Arduino, microcontrollers, bit batteries, LEDs, and it actually has an LED thing on the top and the bottom, and you'll see it in the video here, where if you bend it upward, it'll actually do a like the Iron Man.
His repulsor, or whatever it's called.
Where is it? There it is. Wow! Look at that. Pretty cool. So yeah, you could you know, if you're getting bullied on the playground, blow away all the bullies with your Iron Man hand. No, don't do that.
Well, I think he'll be the spot. Well, I think it's really cool, and we've talked about this before. And you know, one of the things I mentioned when we had John on from what is the project that he's working with, Chris? Do you remember?
Yeah, so he's working on the he's working with Not Impossible Labs.
Yeah. So, which is very cool. But if you remember what I mentioned, well, maybe we could scan the other appendage in order to provide a realistic. And they said, no, kids don't want that. They want that Iron Man look, and then it looks like somebody has actually done it because they're the cool kids now. And I just think that's great. I mean, we live in a time now where not only is it not affordable, but we can use our creativity to create something for a child or even an adult that makes them different, unique, but special. And no longer will they be ostracized for things that they had no control over. So I really think that's great. So thanks on that. Yeah, I saw that and I said, I think Chris will get that one. So glad you did.
Yeah.
To let our audience know, normally we don't know what we're picking until that morning. Actually, Chris has always got a heads up because I get mine done the night before, but he always surprises me the next day. So I have to think like him. What would he like? So moving on to mine, this hopefully doesn't indicate what I like, but, who's not a Hoff fan? He's just, it's kind of funny. I remember listening to some podcast, and he had put out like a selfie where you took an image and then they would project his image into the background on Google Plus. So it was really funny, and it was like you were being selfied by the Hoff. Well, now they're taking it one step further, where if you don't know who the Hoff is, it's David Hasselhoff from two main series. Who doesn't remember Kit from Knight Rider? And then I never watched Baywatch, but I guess he was also.
Come on, Baywatch.
But,
you.
But I mean, obviously this is a younger picture, but he is really, really popular in Germany and Europe, and he's got a fairly large. He has done the right thing. He knows that he created some campy. Well, I guess some people thought they were okay on TV series, but he's just taken that to the bank. He's kind of created a cult figure. But so somebody's decided to work with him to create the 3D Hoff. And I don't know. They're still trying to work out what this would be good for. If they create a 3D printer, a picture of you, and you're working with the Hoff, so you get a selfie with the Hoff in it. I don't know, but I think it's kind of funny that you can go to this guy and create the Hoff. So I just thought that was a fun thing.
Hoff, man.
And hats off to David. Here he's actually holding himself, that he's moved forward. This was like, remember Keanu Reeves and the sad Keanu, where he was sitting on the bed. Yeah. So that was kind of a meme for some time, and then he actually got on to show that. So I'm looking at this as being something similar to that.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, fun for David, and hopefully makes a little money off this, making fun of himself. He's got a great spirit, and who can't laugh at a guy or laugh with him, not at him, for moving forward with this kind of thing. And actually, I guess well, some people don't think so. I guess he's a fairly decent singer as well, and is hot on the charts in Germany. Okay, well, that's my news items, and hopefully that was a fun item. And you got, I guess that's it for you as well, huh? So we go on into, what's next?
Projects and products.
Okay. So yeah, you actually are going to have somebody on this week on a project. So you want to fill us in where we're at with that?
Yeah, we'll have more news next week. We were going to have a guest crasher, and what happens with the Kickstarter project that we found out is, obviously, if you haven't done a Kickstarter before, there's a review process. So when you actually click the publish go live, it doesn't go live that day. It actually takes between 5 to 7 days while the Kickstarter staff reviews your project to make sure that it's obviously not been running into that. So they have a review process. We were going to have him on because his Kickstarter was supposed to go live yesterday, and my beautiful mug is featured in the Kickstarter video, which is my first Kickstarter project that I've been involved in, really hands-on. I've been in some other Kickstarter projects involved in the prototyping phases, but this is my first actually hands-on. So that one is called Birds RC. You'll be able to find that, and we'll have more info next week after the Kickstarter goes live, and hope to have Marvin on the show.
Well, hopefully we can have him on the show, and he can talk more about it. So, yeah, I was hoping to have Paul, and I can't think of his last name. I don't know if that's his stage name or name. His actual email address is different, but from Adobe, but it doesn't appear like he got my last-minute email, so it's more my fault. But I'll go through some of the new features in the Adobe product a little bit later. But now I want to talk about. All right, so let's say that you've been CT. Or you got these CT scans for whatever reason, hopefully for positive and not negatives, and it's Halloween, and what good is your CT scans? Well, if you remember, CT scans are good at creating bone structures, and with some neat software, and I'll bring it up here, like this product, which is the Invicilius product. We've had them on. They're from Brazil. And can you hear me, Chris, or are the dogs really?
No, I hear you
Okay.
loud and clear.
All right. Well, I apologize for that. I have two little dire wolves, and they have a tendency sometimes to go nuts and howl, so I'll talk over them. But essentially, Invicilius is a product that's free software, GNU GPL, is supported by the CTI Brazil, which is their technology group. And you can take the DICOM images and literally create 3D models from it. And I use this product as well as another product called Slicer to create CT or using CT scans and MRIs to derive tangible models, which I then sent to my wife's surgeon, as we talked about a little earlier. But now I got these 3D sculptures, I'll call them that, hanging around the house now. So I'm thinking, okay, it's Halloween, and what's Halloween without a couple of skulls? So what I did, and here's one of them here. This is one that I printed on the Ultimaker. If you notice, there's a ridge here. That's where, sorry to say this, Ultimaker, but one of the screws came out and actually caused it to shift. I've talked to them about it. I think they're using some type of material now to prevent that. Is this bad? You want to drop into yours and see if I can do something about it, or can you barely hear them, Chris?
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay. So what I did is we have some of those candles, those LED candles. So I took one of these and I just took a magic marker and redid the light to make it orange, red, and then I just placed it into one of the holes in the skull, and there you go.
Ooh,
So
spooky.
so my wife is now part of our Halloween decorations. And
She had no idea what she was getting herself into when
no,
you got a hold of those scans, did she?
well, she would like me to put them away and never show them again. But so there's that one, and then and actually, if you care to know, this is the reason these were printed and sent on. This is not the model we sent to her surgeon, but I sent another full-scale model. But this is the actual tumor. It's a golf-sized bony meningioma above the left orbital roof. And with these type of things now, so if you've never seen it, they can literally plan, because it is full scale, where to actually perform the procedure, which they did through her upper eyelid and drilled out all this. So I will show you that with a smaller scale, which I've also created into. But this is a smaller scale version of her skull done with a higher resolution CT. Notice there's no ridging on this one. But if you look up into the left eye socket, you'll see, look, you can see my finger. She now has a golf ball size hole, which is a possible concern. And we're going to be discussing that today, and that's why I thought I would bring up the person I did earlier about their bony material, because that may have to be an option in the future. But with this one, I put a base on it that also has a light. There, and you can barely see. Ooh, can you see it? So again, if you got any CT scans, pick up a copy of Invicilius. It's free, and pull in your DICOMs, and then create your own 3D objects of your bones or any other organ, and then print them, and then you can make your own skeleton of yourself.
Ooh.
Ooh, spooky.
All right. Well,
so on to you.
I think it's time for the Print Whisperer.
Okay.
All right.
Why are we whispering?
Because I'm the so-called Print Whisperer.
You are the Print Whisperer.
This is the name you have titled me with.
Sensi.
Okay, so there is an interesting YouTube channel out there. I am always looking for advice and ways to tweak my RepRap style machine, obviously, and make it print better to the best that I can. A pinnacle of perfection, if you will. So there is a great YouTube channel out there for us, I want to just plug this guy. He does a great job. His YouTube title is Zen Master M, and this series is called Rep Rap 101. And this is a great video. This one here called Setting Your 3D Printer's Extrusion Part 2 Fine Tuning. This comes after you calibrate your E-steps, but this is how to calibrate properly your extrusion multiplier, which is essentially a fine-tune adjustment that's built into your slicing software that tells your machine how much filament to feed or which rate over or under the kind of the stock feed rate. So for your filament diameter, because every head is slightly different, you know, we're talking at the micron level now, and because each extruder is slightly different, and each extrusion method is slightly different, and each material creep is slightly different, you may want to do this to get your printer printing to the best of your ability, or the best of its ability, I should say. And so there's a fine-tuning method. You just you can print some calibration pieces and take measurements. So make sure you have a good set of calipers, and you're going to want to just run this run through this little video. And
where can you get the file, Chris?
The file is down here. It's on GitHub. And you can find it in the comments section of the video. So Rep Rap 101, Setting Your 3D Printer's Extrusion, Part 2 Fine Tuning. It's a really good step to take to get your printer printing at its optimal level.
I'll have to do that. Hey, thanks, Prince.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So on to some products. You know, Chris, you've talked about this as well as I about Autodesk Fusion 360, but I got an email the other day because I'm a subscriber, and I thought this might be pretty cool for those of you who are wanting to get into solid modeling but really can't afford the big brothers like Autodesk Inventor or SolidWorks itself. They're fairly pricey, but this might be a direction to go. They do have their standard model, which I'll bring up, which is the Fusion 360, which has the pricing of $40, $115, or $300. But what they have now is a product called Fusion 360 Ultimate. And if you do this now, before it's released on November 8th, you can get locked into the standard 360 pricing. So if you're already a member, I don't know if you participate in this. I hope so. Or you can, well, the 360, you can also qualify for a free version for 1 year if you're a student or if you're an entrepreneur who doesn't have an actual product yet. I don't know if that will apply for the Ultimate. So what's the difference? Well, if you've worked with it or are thinking about it, this is what you can do with 360. Surface modeling, and I agree, you can do pretty much everything they talk about it. But what you can't do, which I'm starting to find out that I'd like to do, is called a parts library and content. Obviously, Chris, you're fully aware of something like this in SolidWorks. It really allows you to make your own parts and then pull from your own library. So if you have a lot of custom parts, or you can bring in content from other things, which is a really good thing, you know, like screws, bolts, and I know that's one of the big draws of the SolidWorks is the number of parts that you can bring into your own model, and they're obviously all accurate and to specification. So the other thing is parametric modeling. We talked about a lot of these things before, but now you have the ability to do simulation and testing, which was not available before, so that's going to be a cool feature. And then animations, which means you can obviously create animations of your work, like exploded views or moving parts, to actually see and provide demonstrations to a client. And then obviously you can send these off to a 2.5 or 3D printing utility, which is built into it, or you can send them out to STLs and then clean them up with NetFab or send them directly to your own slicer. But it now will do 3-axis machining. I don't have one, but I've heard a lot of people talk about 3 and 5-axis machining. The more axis in a CNC, the better, is what I've heard. but they're also much more expensive. But the fact is that it'll support it out of the box is a cool feature. And then going through the manage it, this is probably the biggest strength of 360 is that it's collaboration. And Chris, you've already actually done this in real world examples where you've worked with clients. And then I've actually worked with you a little bit. We haven't exercised this that much since, like you said, you're a SolidWorks person. But I could see this becoming a potential for print houses to have in place that, you know, a person could work with them and then work back and forth. And the new things in the Ultra is concurrent viewing, variant configuration management, and enhanced support. I don't know what that means. I'll have to look it up. But here's the kicker. If you go ahead and subscribe now, you can be locked into 400, 300. But if you wait till after November 8th, 150 a month or 1,200 a year. So kind of a significant jump. So it might be good to take advantage of it now, which is the reason I brought it up, and be part of the Ultra. You know, if you don't need some of these extra features, then stick with the other. It's a great little program. Adds a lot of professional features for a little bit of money. And, you know, SolidWorks being, what, close to $5,000, and I think the full-blown Inventor is about the same. This is really a good direction to go, and you can really create some parts, and this is what I use. So I think it's a good deal, so I'll probably take advantage of it because I'd like to use some of the stress analysis if it actually works as advertised. So that's my product of the week, and I'll give more of an update later on once I have it. So back to you, Chris.
Awesome. Well, as far as a product of the week, this one's not really super 3D related. But it is kind of, because you could incorporate it with your 3D printing. Or this one is called Circuit Scribe, and it lets you draw circuits. It's a pen and ink, and you can actually draw circuits on paper. It's been out for a little while. This video's been on there, but I thought it was worth mentioning because I saw it again, and I just think it's really cool.
No, I think it's really neat, and I wish I had that when I was designing circuit boards, because it looks like something to get a circuit done really quickly on, you know, funny, maybe even on cardboard, but obviously maybe a little bit stronger, but create circuit boards without having to go through the process. Chris, I don't know if you've ever created a circuit board, but in the past, and I guess that's still the case today, you essentially take a copper layered either epoxy or fiberglass board, and you literally will have to use acids to etch away the material that's not protected by the etch-resistant pin, which is in the past, which is, you know, a very dirty process, and like in the additive printing, it's a subtractive process, so you're left with, you know, a lot of copper that you have to figure out how to get rid of. So this looks like a really neat way to get some really quick boards out, and I might be investing in one.
Yeah, and you know, so nowadays, yeah, for me, I've only done breadboarding. I have not designed my own PCB that I've had sent out. And most people nowadays, there's batch PCB manufacturers now. So a lot of people are getting out of doing them at home because there's, you know, like Mike was saying, there's caustic chemicals involved. There's it's a lengthy process, and now you can pick up a free version of Eagle, draw up your circuit board, learn how to do it. You can watch YouTube and learn how to do it, and so you can breadboard your project, design your own circuit board, and then send it off to a batch PCB manufacturer and have it back in a couple weeks and for very little money. So that's usually the way that I've seen people doing it lately, rather than doing it on your own like you used to.
Yeah, well, they're pretty neat. Pretty neat. I have to figure out how to get one. All right, well, I guess we can get into a little mini 101 on using the 3D tools in Photoshop, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I probably wanted to just kind of bring this up because, as you're not aware of it, Photoshop came out with another update to Photoshop CC. They're 2014. They're now calling it 2014.2. Not only did they update a lot of the actual suite products, which I use extensively, but they also updated and created some new products for the iPad. So if you're an iPad fan, you can get a lot like Lightroom now, can use your cloud services to move images back and forth in proxy form, so that you can literally bring images, do some work on them, and then go back to your desktop and have them there, or finish them up in the iPad version. There's a new version of Photoshop Touch that adds some new features, but that's not why I'm bringing this up. The reason I'm bringing this up is Photoshop, because this is a product about 3D, or a show about 3D, has added some new tools. A lot of these are obviously more for the visualization, but now you can bring in collada files with rigging. So what's the positive in that? Well, the positive is if you have animated objects, like say creatures, tools, and that, you can now move them around within Photoshop, so you don't have to move them in the original program and then export them and then go back and forth. You can now do a lot of the moving and positioning of your character while you're in Photoshop. So they're really bringing a lot of the 3D functionality into it. It supports 3D PDF. Right now, Chris, we use Sketchfab, but I've always thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if you had a similar function in 3D? And I saw it for some time, I don't know, about a year ago. I'm thinking, hey, I heard that PDF can support 3D, but I could never find a tool to work with it. So they're really pushing this. I still don't have any tutorials on actually how to do this, so maybe by next week I'll figure out how to do that. But they also have new 3D printer profiles, so if you've got you know, an iMaterialize or some of the maker bots, you know, I wish they would support more than that. As we mentioned to Paul when we had him on, he's the evangelist for Adobe. You know, is there going to be an SDK or some way that if I've got a printer, can I support it? And he really didn't give us a straight answer on that. So as far as I know, you're kind of up at their disposal as far as what you can print, but it can export STLs, so you can bring those into your own slicer. So that's about it. Plus, they've improved the graphics engine, which is important because a lot of 3D rendering requires CUDA cores, and it now supports it in the Mercury graphics engine. So it's better. So that's kind of the basic features, and then they've come out with some more tutorials that you can actually go out and look at, which is funny because when I said, oh, see how it works for the 3D PDF files, it just took me to this, and this is a video by Paul himself. And I think this is one of the older, but it actually shows you how to mix in a decorative into a previous 3D case for an iPhone and mix the two together and then print it. So he goes through that process. And then there are other tutorials that you can work with. So what I'm going to do at this moment, and hopefully I do this and it doesn't blow up on me. Yay. So I've been working on a illustration for upcoming 3D in Medicine, and one of the things that I'd like to do is kind of extrude this or use some of the tools. And I may not be able to do it because for some reason I don't have access to some of my features here, but essentially you have a full range of tools here that you can use to extrude, like new 3D extrusion from selected layer. And for some reason I'm not prepared to actually do it here, but essentially in the past you would select the layer and then you could extrude it, you can emboss, you can do all kinds of features, plus you can rotate it and move it around in 3D space, which is kind of neat. And if you actually had imported a 3D model, you can actually rotate it within the object itself. So in this case I used another application and then imported a graphic in multiple layers to create this here. But what I want to do is take the 3D in Medicine, extrude it a little bit to create a 3D effect, and then use a what's the red-blue, now I've forgotten the word for it, where you have, by wearing red-blue glasses, it creates 3D. Chris? Putting you on the spot. What's it called? I can't remember.
Anaglyph.
Oh, anaglyph, thanks. So I want to create an anaglyph in some of the text here to kind of, just a subtle thing so that you, but if you're wearing glasses, it'll kind of pop a little bit. But so I'm trying to use some of the new Photoshop features, and I apologize for not being able to waste your time now trying to figure it out. But in the past, you just select your layers, and then you can work with it, or you can bring in 3D content, either import your own or bring in from their library. They now have a large series of downloadable content. So you can bring in stages and sets, so you can literally create lighting. So it's becoming a really robust 3D visualization tool and printing tool. And then models and meshes from different locations. You can bring in materials and image-based lighting, IBL, which is really important if you want to create a photorealistic. So they talk about that and how you can actually use them in Photoshop now. So they're really pushing forward with this. Again, it's not just 3D tangible printing, but the whole 3D market that they're looking at. So, and again, Photoshop is mainly a visualization program, so I can see why they're mainly visualization. So that's it for my stuff, I think. Not like I didn't have enough to talk about, huh? So let's see. Oh, we've got some upcoming events. You want me to go ahead and talk about those, or
Yeah.
okay? Well, there's a couple things starting today. Yes, the 3D print show in Paris. We talked about that last week. Or, I'm sorry, a couple of weeks that when they were in England. We'll wait till next Friday to kind of give a full-blown review since it's over the weekend. We also have the Inside 3D Printing Conference and Expo in Santa Clara, which is the one that Chris and I went to last year. Would you agree, Chris, that we were somewhat underwhelmed by that? I mean, I don't.
I thought the big dogs and some of the smaller ones showed up, and it was a small new show, and I think it's already over doubled in size, I've heard. So it is a growing show, and yeah, I don't want to like rule it out, because I definitely am thinking of attending one of the next ones coming up, possibly. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. One of the things that I do look forward to at shows is the symposiums and being able to sit in. So this show, we didn't really get an opportunity to do that, and I don't really know how much content was there in the first one that we went to. But I think it's going to be evolving, and I mean, it's you're going to see these kind of shows grow and probably blossom into a lot more kind of content-rich events.
Yeah, it was the first one that I went to, so I thought it was nice. It was a small venue, but like you said, they did have some breakout symposia and lectures that we didn't attend. But yeah, if you're in that particular area, the Santa Clara area, I recommend going to it if you've never been to one. I think the cost was very minimal, like $10 if I remember correctly, or free if you're part of the press. So it's not that much, and as you said, it's probably larger, but there's a link there if you want to go out and see what they're actually going to offer. I'll keep up with it, and I'll bring a report back next week. And then also, not that we'll go to it, but Moscow, I think this is their first one, 23, 25, so later on next week will be the 3D Print Expo in Moscow. So, this is a worldwide phenomenon. We talked about it numerous times before. This isn't just a United States phenomenon. This is something that's taken the world by storm, and it's a lot. Mainly, I wouldn't say mainly. It's hobbyists have kind of. I liken this, and you probably agree with me, to the small computer era back when I was in my teens. Became prominent. You had your kits, and then eventually it grew into products that you could buy. But the final process was to be able to create things, and that's what computers have allowed, and I think that's what 3D printers are doing, is providing a peripheral that you can actually create things with. So it's just another avenue, and I really like where it's going, and it's kind of reinvigorated me, brought back my youth. Not, yeah, never mind. All right, well, that's it for me. Chris, why don't you wrap it up for us?
Well,
And
thank you again to
we'll
our
call it a day.
listeners and all of our makers out there that are contributing to this content that we go over every week. And we will see you next week on another episode of All Things 3D.
Bye.